Welcome. Good to see you. Beautiful faces. I'm Ashok Gangadine, and this is Hindu Thought in the Global Context. That's a name that's been for over 30 years. This is my 58th year teaching here and getting warmed up. And because Hindu thought, it has many different connotations, but it's Vedic science. It's yoga science, would be better name. When we hear the word yoga, it's in the popular culture. Many of you do yoga or even meditation. These words are all in the culture. But it's very important to know that there's a deep language in Vedic science. Veda means knowledge in the Sanskrit. And the early meditative genius of the seers who are seeking to do first philosophy. What is on the ground floor of being, of reality? And there's a tradition across the planet called first philosophy, getting to what's first. Reality, the self, being. And Aristotle baptized that in his metaphysics, in the science of being, metaphysics. A better word is ontology from the Greek. Ontos is being, logos is science. Ontology is the science of being. And if we can get the DNA, the code for being, by whatever name, which is going to be the ground floor of everything else, that's what we're entering into. First philosophy is a science of getting to the code, the DNA of what's first. Because if you can, Aristotle and the Vedic science understood that if you can get the code of being, of presence, you can't call it stuff. Because when you start to meditate, you can't use ordinary Google informationized thinking to access the source. And first science across the planet, where there's the Logos tradition, the Yahweh tradition, the Allah tradition, the Brahman tradition, the Tao tradition, the Buddha tradition, I'm throwing out some big names, they're all seeking to get to what's first. What's on the ground floor? It's infinite. And if it's infinite, now you're doing do we have the code for the infinite? Because if we do, then everything else is coming out of that. Nothing can be without being. So if we can get somehow the DNA, so to speak, the double helix, a fractal, whatever we want to call it, the logic, the grammar of being, then we're going to have the grammar of all of the grammars. The narratology, the word, if in the beginning, if it's infinite, and it is, why try drawing a boundary around it? It blows it away. Because what's on the other side? So it's unlimited, it's transfinite. Finite means where we live in our everyday life, we name things and everything has its ID and your space and time and cause and substance motion, me and you, and everything has a name tag, an ID. That's a mind operating process. And you can't use that technology to understand and access what's first. The only way to get it is to surf it. So you got to be in the zone. You got to zen it. And that's deep yoga. What we call yoga, done in the everyday cultural space, wonderful as it is, if you're ego-based doing yoga, you're not doing yoga. Yoga is accessing the code of what is first. And so whether it's getting to the logos, and Plato saw that in the Republic, and I'm beginning to open up different, I'm trying to locate the lab we're in. And it's a laboratory because this is not informationized study, it's performance. It's seeking to test out each of us individually. Is it for real? Can I access the source code? Can I surf the infinite presence? Wow. By calling it source, you're almost using a generic word because it has to be generic. If you call it Yahweh or Allah or Brahma, you're locating it in a historical context within a certain narratology that may be begging the whole question, are you getting to what's first? So what we're doing is first science, first philosophy. The science of all sciences, because everything is, any narrative, any discipline is going to have to be tapping into that. Why? Because you can't be without being. You can't be outside of the infinite space. And you can't multiply it. Why? Because if you other it, it's not infinite, so it can't be othered externally, it's othered internally. How much? Infinitely. You mean the source field is infinitely diverse and yet not broken apart into pieces? Exactly. Welcome to Brahman. Welcome to Vedic science. So what we're getting into in this laboratory, and what I'm trying to say is that that if you're going to be in this lab, it's performance, and it's not information you can brush up on later. It's being recorded because it's going to be on Moodle, so it'll be there. But the point is, coming to lab is not to just come and be present. I do ask you to check it. In fact, I should do it right now. New thought, print your name. I'm required to do this, to circulate this while we speak. And after I speak for a while and give you a sense of what the lab is and what we're doing, it'll give you a sense of, do you really want to be here? Because the point I'm making, and there's another check-in, because my classes are limited enrollment and there's a waiting list. And students, for example, in the afternoon, I'm doing global ethics, 103, and it's limited to 25, and about 120 students signed up. And the computer just throws them out arbitrarily. And that's almost what? And the students say, Professor Gangadine, I'm a senior, I was bumped twice, can I get in? What do I do? Say no. So I'm not a weakling, but I'm a softie. I end up with more than, and the registrar is always mad at me. But so students say, can I audit? I say no. Why? Because auditing means you're going to sit in the classroom, it's going to be crowded. But I discovered, and you're going to laugh at me, there's an auditorium, the web. You can audit by tuning into the Zoom. You can zoom in live. If you don't get in, I'm just giving. So there's another list. I never did this before in 58 years. If you're on the wait list and you don't get in, then I'm going to start a new process of opening up the auditorium for all students on campus and beyond. My son, who works with me, is in Sedona. He chooses life. He may be here now, tuning in across. My grandson is leaving for Thailand. He's going to tune in from Thailand, right? And so the point is, I'm opening up the space because you don't have to be in the classroom to experience and sit in the experience, because this is a meditative lab. It's not information, talk about it lab. It's a performance, meaning you got to zen it, you got to zone it. That's yoga. Yoga is surfing presence, not episodically, because you all get in the zone every now and then, because it's always here. If you can't be without being is operative. The infinite force is greater than gravity. It's operative at every moment, right here, in every person. No one can say, if you say, the hell with that, there is no source. You just used it. You say, I don't believe in being. You don't have to use God words. You don't have to because source is science. We're doing science. What is the foundation of reality, of being? It's infinite. It's transfinite. You can't use finite mind operating technology to access infinite source. And is it stuff? No, because that's the derivative code, where you have things, subjects with predicates and attributes and substances and all of that. No, it's deeper than that. So what's the language of what's first? Source, can we get it? Is there a language? Well, it's the infinite word. You heard that in the beginning as a word. Right? That's not an ordinary word. That means it's a word of all words. It's a form of all forms. It's a name of all names. It's the space of all narratives, all disciplines, whatever you major, right? If you are situated in that field of being, and we are, it's reality, right? Then wouldn't it be interesting to tap it yourself? Have access to, that's yoga. Yoga is saying the ordinary self, that we have the ID and we talk about it in that language, which is powerful to tame the source, right? And get the text. The ordinary language is derivative, and the language of presence is performative. You got to meditate it. You can't egotate it. What people call meditation is, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to sit and sit in the posture and breathe and do meditation. No, you can't. It's not egotation. It's source station. Well, what's that? That's when you're in Zen. You're mindful. The ordinary mind has to somehow flip it from a derivative code to get to the primary space. And that's really the whole study of Vedic science. And it's one amongst many different attempts, right? For example, in the Judeo-Christian tradition, when you say in the beginning, it uses the Christ example because this room is founded by the Quakers. We're the Quakers, right? Those who tap the zone and realize that the infinite is here in each of us. There's God in every person. Where'd you get that? Is this a quaint, nice, cute idea? No, it's science. Why? Because once you realize the source is infinite, and it's infinite in every possible iota, and therefore it's here. It's in a grain of sand. It's in an hour, eternity in an hour. Those kinds of visions, really, it's just basically doing source science. Vedic science is one word. So doing Vedic science in a global context means turn on the lights, opening it up, because all the Logos tradition of the Greek, from the Greek, for Heraclitus, Parmenides, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates saying to Plato, get out of the cave, you're looking at the shadows, come into the Logos, that's where you find yourself, know thyself above all. Socrates. And in the Republic, Plato is saying, follow the hologram of knowledge. You go from everyday experience, which is not knowledge, you cross into the world of forms, of mathematics, of logic, of the laws and principles and forms, which are not in physical space, in rational space. And they're eternal. And if we didn't have that, I couldn't have this table without tableness. I couldn't be here without humanness. So the forms get downloaded into the particular, which we can sense in the world of becoming, but the eternal space of forms. But then there's a form of all forms. And as the sun lights up the visible world, Logos lights up the intelligible world. And that's where we are. That's the soul. And the soul is not the same as the body, but the soul embodies. And we forget who we are. And so Socrates, Plato saying, so knowledge is remembering. It's not new information. It's remembering what we've forgotten because it was traumatic for the soul to cross into the body. From the eternal world of forms into embodiment in space and time, it's traumatic. You have amnesia. Yeah. But in a way, that's yoga. Socrates is saying, we've got to somehow leave the cave. We're kind of looking at shadows on the wall. That's everyday experience. We're living in the matrix there. And we have to break free. Philosophy, which is what? You know this, right? Sophia is the infinite feminine embodiment of wisdom. So it's Logosophia. So Philosophia means lover of Sophia. You knew this, right? Loving Sophia. Inquiry. It's seeking knowledge, wisdom. Wisdom is not informational, like the sun is shining and snow is white. That's not knowledge. Small k if you want. But source knowledge, yoga knowledge, is when yoga means yoking, union with the source, with being, with Om. What is Om? The infinite symbol. When you're Oming, you're in the zone. And you can't do it with the ordinary ego technology. It's not powerful enough. So our journey here in this lab is to explore these great texts. I'll go over that. What I'm seeking to do now is just warm up, get jump starting, and give you a sense of why this is the most exciting lab imaginable. For me, it is. There's nothing higher than genuinely exploring the possibility of, is there a version of me that is not my CV? And the way I build up, all of the different attributes and properties that distinguishes me and gives me my identity, and that's my ego-centered self, and that's myself. Could it be that on all these great first philosophies are saying, no, that ain't you, that's a version, that's a downgrade, that's a download of you from a deeper source. But if you tap into being, you're being. You're coded, we're all coded with source. And so in a way, ironically, even the Quakers who, after 2,000 years, said Jesus is the Logos in the flesh speaking, and the Logos speaking is not the ordinary grammar, it's a deeper language. The Logos speaking, how does the Logos sound? Logos is a word, it's speaking. It's a weird language, I can't understand it. Say, I am the way, the truth, and life. No, truth is a sentence, the sun's shining. That's a sentence, that's truth. If a sentence corresponds with reality, il pleut, it's regnant, it's raining. Sentences describe, that's true. That's a fact. No. How can you say, I am the way, I am the truth? You can't be the truth. But Krishna, we're going to see Krishna one of the great texts we're going to start out with, the Bhagavad Gita in Vedic science, which is already coming late in the tradition. Imagine centuries before that, the meditators, not the predicators, okay? I use that word. Ordinary thinking is predicative. Aristotle, the launcher of logic, but the European tradition finally began to get the laws of thought. The thing is to predicate. A is A. Thing is what it is. It's either A or not A. It can't be both A and not A. It's either A and not A. It's A or B. B and A can't be. There's different, and so it starts. That's a mind operating process of ordinary logic. That's information. The thing is to predicate. I should put up some sketches or something. You've probably heard rumors that Gangadin has signs of single brackets and double brackets as a logician, or it's trying to call out, because centuries, the greatest minds were trying to see the difference between our ordinary language and logic and grammar, and the code, the matrix that we're using, and that we're situated, that makes our lives. We're using that code to make our lives and our experience and our feelings and our human relations and our whole world. That's one level of language, but there's a deeper space, apparently. And that's echoing across the planet for centuries. You've got to go deeper to the source. If you're desourced, you're in trouble. How do I do this? I hope you can see. You can come around. Oh, I'm wired. Hold on. So my background is, I was in logic and ontology. When I arrived in 1968 from Brandeis, my mentor there was his assistant, Professor Summers, a genius for a logician, was having major breakthroughs, and I was working with him. And when I came to Haverford in 68 as a logician and ontologist, the language, how are worldviews? We live in different worlds, different realities, ontology. When you're living in the materialist worlds, matter, rules, matter, that's one language, that's one way of being. Physics may be materialism, but then there's idealism. No, ideas, spirit rules. That's biblical. In the beginning is spirit. That's a different worldview. And if you look across the planet, there are many different worldviews, many grammars, many different mental spaces and mind codes that different cultures are living in different worlds. But what makes sense in the materialist world doesn't make sense in the other world. The Big Bang language is a totally different language, completely. The words from Genesis, the beginning of spirit, for example. So how do you cross worlds? That was my question when I arrived. How do we know if you're in a European-oriented mind space or mental grammar, and I'm trying to enter into the world of Buddha? That's a whole different world, a meditative world, where Buddha enlightenment is saying, the reality is shunyata, it's emptiness of all stuff, and you're not stuff, you are a Buddha. Everyone Buddha, but it's not a thing. What is it's surfing the field, the intranet of interconnectivity of the sacred geometry of an infinite field with infinite diverse points, but each point is the center reflecting everything else. Wow. That's who you are. It's no self. It's not a self. It's not a predicated. It's a meditative. For example, that I'm opening up a global context and echoing different traditions and trying to say we've got to get deeper. So we have to understand that everyday life, what is to think? Well, Aristotle is opening up logic. To think is to predicate. To join pieces together to get meaning. Here's a thinker. Here's a screen of our awareness. I think. What is thinking? And I'm using single markers to mark this space. You never saw that before. That's the matrix we're in. To think and to have a narrative, to make sense. All of the human languages have a logic. This is a logic. This is deep. This is the deep structure of any language. As diverse as Chinese, Swahili, Hebrew, Sanskrit, whatever language, French, German, English may be, they have a deep logic. That was an amazing breakthrough, allegedly. That Aristotle is bringing out the laws of thought. So this is to think is to predicate. And to predicate is to form units of thought that make sense. That's meaning. So if S and P do blend, S is P, it makes sense. But if they don't blend, if it doesn't connect, it's nonsense. If I say 7 is blue, that doesn't make sense. Why? Because color is not the kind of thing that can belong to a number. Not that kind of thing. If I say the stone is thinking, many would say, no, that's a category. It's called a category mistake. Category mistake is when your grammar of your thought, the map of your life, how do we know as children learning a language how to predicate and make sense? We seem to learn it and how to avoid nonsense. If you came home and said to your mom, quadruplicity drinks procrastination. What? It's nonsense. So how do we know the laws of what subjects and what predicates blend to make sense? That's meaning. And if it has meaning, it's a picture of fact. And there's a world. So thinking, language, thought, world. That's how we can get to the facts. We can touch it through the language. So you can have many different languages expressing a thought. Il pleut, es regnet, it is raining. They have the same meaning. How do you know that? How did you figure out those different languages have a common, logic? You think it's the predicate, right? And that's magnificent. We live here. Because me, who am I? I process myself within this space. Who am I? I have got all my attributes. My gender, my birth, where I am. I'm a student, I'm an athlete, I'm a citizen, and so forth. And I build up my ID and I have my ID. And that's me. There, I am. And what is this matrix? Well, it's running on the program A is A. A is A. That's an axiom of our life, because if A were not A, if A were not fixed, you would have nothing, you can't get started. If you didn't have fixed terms with univocal meaning, but they all flux, you couldn't get started, there would be no thought. If A were not A, it's true. So tag it, A is A. And therefore it's either A or not A. Now you got some laws going. This is powerful. Either A means either A or not A. A is A, it has identity. It's identical with itself. How did you get that? Something is happening to even get this going. So you have several laws coming out of this right away. The reason I'm doing this is to show that what Vedic science is doing, what yoga philosophy is saying, great as this is, don't get stuck there. Something deeper is going on. There's a deeper, not this matrix, not this logic, not this mind operating technology. It's a technology of thinking and using reason, which is great, and making sense and meaning, there's meaning, and therefore having a world with facts and events and truth, and the relationship between, and language pictures the world, and our feelings. It's not just reason, it's emotions and feeling. All of our life is happening in a narrative space. And what grammar do I have? There are different grammars and mind maps. The materialist is saying matter rules. That's one language. Another one saying, no, spirit rules. That's a totally different language. Have we figured that out? No, forget that right now. I'm just trying to get the word predication up. There's thinking, to think is to predicate. But then why is in Vedic science says, no, this is for good everyday common sense, but something deeper is going on. If you meditate, if you not predicate, but if you meditate, which is to say, you got to see, don't use this technology of thinking, use a deeper one. And I'm trying to find a way to, what's the difference? If you realize that Om, let's say Om is what's first, it's the infinite. You can't meditate the infinite here because it's finitized. Everything is a unit, it's specific, it's finite, it's determinate, it's fixed. But what is first can't be. So how do we access that? And is there a version of me that's not in this space? That isn't an ID. That's called karma. What's your karma? It's the predicates and attributes that make up your narrative and your CV of who you are, and you're playing that game. You're a student, you've got all kinds of things following from that. If I'm a citizen, there are things that are going on here. If I'm a male, if I'm a female, whatever it is, right? They're shaping what's up with me. It's my karma. But what if your karma is holding you back and there's a boundary here and you've got to go deeper, into. So what's going on in the Vedic side? So that's just one hologram. I'm launching the difference between ordinary thinking and meditative thinking, surfing the source. And now you've got, if you look across 2,500 years of the great first philosophies, they're all saying something deep is going on. Whether you call it the infinite being or Yahweh or Allah or Brahman or Tao. The Tao that is named is not the Tao. You hear the opening of Lao Tzu. Tao, the name for the fundamental field that is named, if you name it, you're putting it here, then you blew it. You blew it. Right, so what's up with that? What's the name for the infinite source of being? Right? It's reality, the ground of reality. This, as real as this, the facts, and there are many different facts. Materialism will give one kind of worldview and facts. Idealism gives a different one. So there are many competing narratives in the space, many different ideologies and narratives and belief systems. You can believe it when you say, yes, I believe it. You say yes to it, or no, I don't believe it. And it is or it isn't. Look at this, the binary logic is happening. It's amazing what's going on. But there are many different worlds. And what makes sense in one world and is true and is a fact is not in another. How many different worlds there are here? And there's boundless different narratives across the planet, and ideologies within a culture. In USA culture, the ordinary culture, how many different competing narratives are there? Interpretations of reality. We interpret. To experience is to interpret. And to interpret is to translate. And if you're translating the reality into a belief system that you're believing, you use your will to say yes or no to it. All this is going on here. So, first philosophy. If there's what is first, right? And I'm going to use this is a different code. Now we're getting into the Vedic, into first philosophy, into the logosphere, into the Om sphere, the Tao sphere, the Yahweh, the Allah sphere, whatever name for the infinite. It's an infinite, and there's nothing can be outside of it. So all of this is going on within the Unum sphere. Why Unum? Almost like Unum is using the Latin for infinite unity is not the same as unity here. So single bracket unity is not the same as double bracket. These are two different dimensions of intelligence, language, reason, feelings, life. This is source life, and this is ordinary, culture and life and experience. When you have Lego units, separate units, I'm a separate being. I'm an individual. I got me. I'm separate. And what happens here is, no, you're not. Why? Because the Unum sphere, the Om sphere, in the Vedic tradition, what's this field? Brahman. And Brahman manifests in terms of Vishnu and Shiva, the creator, Brahman, Vishnu, the preserver, Shiva, time, process, dance, the Lord of dance, letting go, terminating, deconstructing, preserving, deconstructing, creating. Wow. And now, who's Krishna? Krishna is Vishnu. But speaking this language to Arjuna, there's a Gita. It's a text between the Bhagavad Gita, the song of Brahma, the song of God. There's a dialogue between Krishna, speaking in the Om script, and everyday Arjuna broken down in the battlefield. You'll see that this text that we'll start with next session, Bhagavad Gita, is one of the great pillars of the Vedic science, but with the dialogue that is meant to be understood more in the general culture, whereas the Upanishads for centuries before were the yogis giving formulas. The Mandukya Upanishad, Om, meditate on Om. Past, present, future is just Om, but beyond. The different states of consciousness. And the self is deeper, Turiya. The self is deeper than this. That's been going on for centuries. And then Vedanta means the end of the Vedic period. So this lab we're going into is going to be, just jumping aside, we're going to do the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is the voice of Om, speaking to the everyday person who's broken down in the fratricidal war. It's almost like they apply to the US here now. There's some kind of self-harm going on in the culture. Why? Because of this. That was never understood. What's generating the breakdown in violence across the planet in the human family? We're not here. We're not crossing out of this space. It looks already so messy. I'm sorry. And there's no eraser. I'm putting this up here because I'm inviting us to say, if this is the ground floor of being, it's infinite. And if it's infinite, I can already begin to get some absolute axiom. It's infinitely one. Why? Because you can't have two. Okay, if it's infinitely one, how about the diversity? Yes, infinite diversity. Well, what? I can't predicate it here. But if it's the source of all, then anything that could be here is already infinitely here. Word, infinite word. Consciousness, infinite consciousness. Location, infinite location. Omnipresent. Why? Because the logic of the infinite requires that everything about it's infinite. And it's infinitely one. Even with the infinite diversity. Now it's weird. Now you have a weird logic. You have to go fractal. You need intranet, not internet, but indra, the field. Infinite points, and yet all connected and reflecting each other. Each point is this. So each person is a center, unique, and yet reflecting the connectivity of the unum. So it's a continuum. It's a continuum. I'm inviting you to start doing some science. How would you locate yourself here? Because we are. If this is the source of all, the infinite, then obviously it's going to pervade. You can't have any being without that. So it's going to be everywhere. So it's even here in the noisy spaces. It's so awful. This is the yoga. It's really stepping back. That's Vedic science. Stepping back from privileging a derivative code and learning how to surf the field of being. What's it? The Zen. So I'm putting up something that's it's going to blow your mind. The mind here can't handle. So if I say, okay, this is where Vedic science is happening. Can you find yourself here? Not with an ID, with your attributes and your subject and your entity. You're not an entity. You're not a thing. Don't reify yourself. Don't objectify yourself. You're deeper than that. So that's why so many philosophers say you've got to be an Ubermensch. You want to be a mensch. You got Nietzsche. You got to step out of this place to find yourself. It's been echoed all through the centuries. And the Quakers are saying there's this in every person. There's God. You don't have to say God. Source is in every person. Let's form a college in Founders Hall because this is the honor code. What? Can anyone find the honor code here? Come on, you can do it. Can you find yourself here? If we're source sapiens, I'm not using religious words. I'm using deep ontology. Vedic science is one example. That's what we're doing. Vedic science in a global context. What the global context? What's that? The source of all. Where'd you get that? The infinite. Well, infinite. Can anything be outside? No, nothing can be out here. If you can pull this off and say, you would have blown all of that. If you can utter this, the infinite, imagine. You can't. Even if you're denying it, if you say, you know what? I'm a nihilist and all that's bull. I don't buy any higher. All I know is the absurdity of my everyday life. I'm Camus. It's empty, it's absurd, I'm nihilist. The dark night of the soul. I don't see any meaning, and I've got to somehow survive that. You couldn't do that without this. If you say there is no source, you're using source to deny it. You're using affirm or deny, yes or no. Right? You're using a yes or no. So there is no me. Yes, there is. As it's been going on for centuries, this keeps repeating itself. And Arjuna in the Gita is in a breakdown with his family at a war, fratricidal war in the family, and he drops his weapon. The opening of the Gita. This is your assignment for now. I want to give you enough to see if you want to stay for this journey into self-discovery. In a global context, that means all worlds are under the jurisdiction, it's a very important word, of the infinite source. If you use the word Yahweh, if you use the word Allah, if you use the word Brahman, if you use the word Tao, if you use Shunyata, Buddha calls this empty. It's empty of that, but it's overflowing, it's abundant, it's wealth. If you can live here and tap here, that's nirvana. I'm saying, so find yourself, where are you? So, beats me. I don't get it. If you read Descartes' Meditations on First Philosophy, a good example of a genius, brilliant thinker, analytic geometry, he's into the math and the logic, he's great here in the logic, and he pauses in his life and say, I have a dream, he had a dream as a youth, where he would discover universal grammar. Characteristica universalis, the universal grammar, which is the DNA for source. He says, got to be a grammar. And all of my career for 60 years has been trying to get deeper and deeper into, and that led me to introduce the notation as a logician. So when we're in this logical space, mind space, and form of reason, and emotions and feelings and life and experience here, and this, that all these great teachers, first philosophers say, got to go high, and giving different names for this. How many names with the infinite source, the infinite word? Infinite names. If you say there are only 3 names, that's silly. The logic blows it away. So everything about the infinite source is infinite. And anything you find in the world couldn't be without it. And therefore, if you say, oh, consciousness came into the world from matter, and it wasn't there in the beginning, that doesn't work. So how much is consciousness? Space. How much is space? Infinite space. How about time? Infinite time. And is time separate from space? No, they're space-time. How about mind and word and word and world? No, they're all interwoven. But I don't know how to handle that. I can't, it's too hot. I can't handle it with this. But that's meditation. Meditation takes you into this space, into this technology, which is what? Everything is interconnected. Every point. It has the infinite within it. Now there's God in every person. Quakers. Let's form a college. Founders Hall. We're in Founders Hall. We could have blown it. I mean, if you think Founders Hall is here, right? Or think of the 76ers. We know they were flawed, right here in Philadelphia. Influenced by the Quakers and indigenous wisdom, we hold these truths to be self-evident. That we're endowed by the source with unalienable rights of life, liberty, well-being. And in the course of events, whatever arrangements we have that one to the other, if it violates our independence, we must separate. Paraphrase. Separate from what? They didn't say from a derivative code that's messing you up. But if the 76ers were tapping into the hill, what's a self-evident truth? A truth that is so brilliant that it's seeing its truth. Not like ordinary truth here. Rain is falling, let me check and see. No, truth here is not the same as self-evident. We hold these truths to be self-evident. But we are humans. And that's it's not talking about men or women or gentry. Humans are endowed by this, and I could say why, with unalienable rights, ontological rights of life, liberty, well-being. We form governments to protect that. The third point. And if at any time, this is why it's not just about getting rid of the British, it's getting rid of the brutish. If at any time the government is abusive and tyrannical and violates, as hard as it may be, and we're going to be conservative and careful and not abrupt, but we'll suffer a lot, but then we're going to have to change it and introduce a new form of government that does protect. That's the fourth remark in the opening of the Declaration. That's huge. You might say, did we do our homework in the USA in the founding 250 years? Have we migrated from a derivative technology to a higher form of we the people? It's the Gita. A person is here. And you can't label her and objectify. If you objectify each other and yourself, you're violating the sanctity of being a person. We're not just predicative entities. But this objectifies the I, the thinker, and the not I, the object. And if I think about you, my lover, and I see you, and I'm playing this game and objectify myself, something's wrong. The technology is going to lead to codependency and polarization. It's intrinsically polarizing. We haven't seen that. So could it be the USA is here? So what I'm asking, can you begin to meditate, you can't predicate, to see, can you start to draw out some axioms from this place? If this is Brahman, the name for the infinite in the tradition we're entering into, and what is the whole point of Vedic philosophy? Yoga. Patanjali, the great genius of yoga, the Yoga Sutra, sutras of formulas. Yogas chittam vritti naharaha. Nirodha. Yoga is the wiping out of conceptual thought. Stop it to get to yoga. So one law, the law of this place, A is A, but every A has a higher A. Wow. When you go from this language to this language, you're going from single bracket A, space, to double bracket A. So what's a better formula? That's an ultimate formula. A is A. Every A is A. Every word that we use in derivative language, call it single bracket X. This is important. This was not seen before. Has an analog in the deeper space, X. I am. Who are you? Don't tell me your attributes in your CV. You are, I am. So back to Descartes. When Descartes saw that he could doubt everything here, what if there's an evil genius controlling my mind and making me think and believe it's true, even math? What if there's a demon controlling my mind? He didn't say, what if there's a matrix holding me captive? And I'm laboring under the matrix and objectifying, and I could be wrong. He said, I could doubt it all. And he said, I'm stepping back, Descartes, in his meditations. Let me experiment and step back, because if everything is dubitable, is there anything certain? And then he says, I'm stepping back from mind, world, body, all of that, culture, I'm dropping my culture, mathematics, everything, because the demon rules that space. And he says, I am. But he didn't say, I am here. He didn't say, I am here. I am. It was called Meditations on First Philosophy, Descartes, founding of modern philosophy. And I think he was not understood because the codes were conflated. This code was incorporated here, and you erase all of this. This is where we're living. We have no codes. It's all going on in our language, in our everyday language. We don't have no even single bracket because you only see the single marker space when you can see the source that's holding it. Allows us to say, oh, this is the derivative code. And it couldn't be without, no code, no ordinary cultural language or narrative could be without the fundamental word of the narratology of this. So it's not that X is X, but X, every X is X. If you could follow that, then you don't need to stay here and sign it into the class. Bye. Every X is X. Space? Space. But if a space is not space, like say, space, time, cause, substance, figure, texture, motion, all pieces. But here, everything is interwoven in the Ohm sphere. Can you handle it? Well, when Einstein begins the space-time continuum, whoa, beyond the Newton space and time, space-time. And how about allegedly Descartes has a mind-body split, soul and body? That went back to Socrates and Plato. Soul is one dimension in outside of space and time. Body is in space and time. There's a mind-body split. No, here it's mind-body. There's no mind-body split here. How about I and you? I and not I? No, here, I am not cut off from the other. I and the other are somehow other. There's unimus pluribus. There's alterity. but yet connectivity. The other is other, but if I objectify, then I violate. So right here you can see ethics. Don't objectify yourself or other, which means what? The golden rule. Do unto other, not other here, but do unto other as you have, well, because that's the law of love, which is what? The source. Why is it love? Because of infinite, the music of infinite connectivity and interwovenness. So Krishna is speaking this language to Arjuna, and Arjuna doesn't know it. He doesn't know that language. So Krishna has some teaching to do, some life coaching to do. That's what this lab is going to have to be. Because the culture we're in, and now in terms of AI is happening within the space. When you say AI is going to get this, AI is going to be able to handle presence, infinite presence. Why call it presence? Because when you realize you can't objectify, you can't take the source and objectify it and name it and contain it. And you can't treat a substance with attributes or infinite substance, that's not going to work. So if it's not a thing, what is it? It's presence. It's presence. Thank you. That's a good time. It was well timed. Presence, not present. This is extremely important. Right? Time here. Time has passed, future. Those are, the past is over, the future is not yet, the present is moving, it's not there. You say, live in the present. No, you have to live in presence. What do you mean? This is presence. What is that? The unified time where future and past meet in the moment that never breaks. Whoa, that's the power of now. Now is now. Step back, it's now. What's that? Infinite presence. So what if you want to do first philosophy and get to this is a Big Bang? What's the initial conditions? You can't use this thinking of initial thinking, beginning and ending and so forth. That doesn't apply. You can't say in the beginning using this because this can't access that. So how do you tap into the origin? Well, it doesn't begin. The infinite can't begin or end. That means every point is infinite and unbreakable, and we're one of those points. And that blows away death and the termination of an entity. Krishna's going to teach this. And most people don't have this. They don't say, oh, this is where Brahman, this is the field of Brahman. It has a different geometry, sacred geometry, to have a different fractal connectivity of every point. Buddha got that too. And we're here. When you tap into this, it's a whole different cultural technology of consciousness, of how you, and that you got to, this is meditation, this is predication. That's just the first mark. You okay? So to think is to predicate. No, to think is to meditate. Oh, this is a different kind of thinking. Oh. So if you don't have codes, you're going to be conflated. The codes are going to be conflated, and we don't have a differentiation. So when Krishna speaks in our everyday language, we interpret it the way Arjuna is in our everyday language. And that blows it all. Because the healing medicine of source, speech, Krishna's speech, for example, yoga, the yoga space, to the ordinary objectified space, it's often called, this is dualistic. This is flooded with dualism, fragmentation, polarization. It's a shredder. This technology is a shredder. And it makes entities and reifies. And we're not things, we're persons. And our tendency is this, I only know myself in a thing language with attributes, and I'm a CV, and I preconsciously buy into it. Who are you? Tell me. If you go to have coffee, he says, tell me about yourself. Who are you? I said, well, I'm a student at Harvard College, American Samoa, down from Costa Rica. Teach me how to doogie, whatever it is. You give your predicates. No, that's boring. If I take you for coffee, if I invite you for coffee, and we start to speak to introduce each other, right? Be careful. Because presence, when you're present, when you're in the zone, and you're in dialogue with the other person, you're meeting the other person in this space, it's not monologue using your lens and your thought and your experience to objectify and talk to the other. Self and other is not the same as I, thou. If thou is a presence, you can't objectify him or her. That's not violent. That's what Krishna is trying to teach and coach Arjuna. So we can't do the course here. So please, if you're here for an information, so I want to learn about Hinduism. It's not Hinduism. It's not the religion. Go to the religion department. I'm not putting it down. It's not a religion of following a belief system or anything like that. It is yoga technology. It's Vedic science. It's first philosophy. It's huge. First philosophy, Aristotle and Plato believed that if we can get the grammar of being, Brahman, of Om, whatever name you want to use for being, we will have the code of all codes. And everything that we have in everyday culture, we'll understand how it's coded into deeper space. The first philosophy is huge, but we didn't see the first philosophy is a whole other technology. You can't predicate it, you got to meditate it. So if you put Yahweh here, or Allah here, or Brahman here, or Om here, or whatever you put here, you're blowing it. And the teachers knew that. So if you're going to sign up, when I call your name, which I'll do shortly, see if you say this is not what I came for. I want to have information. I want to be well schooled, and I want to get information about things. I'm hearing a lot about it, this Om stuff and this Bhagavad Gita. I want to learn about it as a good student. Please don't answer your name when I call. Okay? I just want to be fair. This, and that's why I circulate a check-in. Did I circulate? Did I circulate the audit list? No. Again, now that's just everyone checked in on the other one, right? And this is what, in case you don't get in, and I'll leave it here, and you'd like to audit, I'm going to make that possible now. In the auditorium, Vedic. When I said that word, wait a minute, I can have an auditorium, which you have to come into class. It's virtual. Oh no, right? It's a virtual class. The whole planet can sit in. Whoa, I'm kind of slow. Get it? But yes, I feel honestly, this is our future. This is huge. All of our great traditions are saying we got to find how the source, we're being source. We're source sapiens. We're not Lego sapiens. We're source sapiens. And that's who we are as persons. And if we just play out our life in this space of consciousness and thinking and emotions and feelings and psychology and so forth, and never get into this is a place of meaning and abundance and wealth and nirvana. So what we're doing in this lab is nirvana studies. Can I gain access to the zone? I keep jumping up and down. But this is why athletes in performance can have zone moments, because we're always here. And sometimes when I'm not looking on the soccer field, I became the soccer. On running the track, I became the running. It's not I was running, but I be running. You are the running. I'm basketball. I am the basketball. You step up to the home plate in baseball. Right? Did you get that? Home plate? Home run? In other words, you're in the zone. And we have those moments just to make it user-friendly. Wow. Have you ever been in the zone at a high moment where you didn't try, but somehow it grabbed you and you're up late solving a problem or writing something or performing or on the athletic field, and you're out of yourself. You got out of yourself. Why? Because it's always there. They have moments of peak performance where it grabs you, but then you go right back to the locker room. After you had an out-of-body in running on a 100-yard dash. You're out of body. No, you're out of this artificial body and tapping into your yogic body. So when you hear the word mind, my mind, no, this is out of mind. This blows that mind. Your body, that you and your body, is one of the structures that you live in. And your body can be objectified and ossified, and you're not in your body. You're out of body. This is out of body, but when you're in the zone, you are the dance. You're a dancer. And you are the dance. Martial arts. There's no split between mind and body. The thought is the action. So that's possible. So how do we stabilize that? Well, you have episodes of being, but how do you learn to habitually cultivate your life in that space? And the word rehab, Pushta is going to teach rehab. What does that word mean? Hab is habit. Ethics, the word from Greek, ethike means habit. And what is that? When you're a veteran in virtue and you're performing and living and embody the law of goodness and ethics, you're virtuoso. Virtue rather than vice. Vice is a bad habit. Ethics is a good habit when you're gooding, right? So how can you be yogic in your lifestyle, in your life where you've got to, if I have a high moment on the soccer field and I go back and I'm coming to the dining center, can you keep that? Who is who? The who question. Who are you? Your CV and your ID here? Or the mindful, zenful self that cannot be packaged and named and labeled? Can you go into the dining center very quietly and sit? Because Krishna is going to be teaching this. And you gather your food. Which food? Single bracket food or own food? Who's doing it? The objectified version of yourself or the mindful, aware version that's selecting sacred foods, sacred water? You drink ordinary water or water? It can be wine. I know they don't serve it in the dining center. If you're going to have some wine off campus, right? Taste the wine. Who's tasting it? This is important. You know, hold the Catholic rite of passage of the wafer and the wine. What? This is my body, the body of Logos. This is my blood. This is the source. Right? When you transmutate, you're going from the single bracket to the double bracket. And that's yoga. And that's what Krishna is teaching Arjuna. How the hell is Arjuna going to get this? Us. We don't know that language. That's why I'm just putting that up in line and say, wow. So my whole life has been to try and decode the two technologies of consciousness and language. It's hinted at and talked about over and over. If you read many of the best-selling books, The Power of Now, be in the present, don't get hung up on the future or stuck in the past, you're abused, be here now. But where is the now? We know it has no space. It's appearing as it's disappearing. How can you be there? It has no stability. But the summation of all Vedic science is be here now. One word. Being, source. Here, double bracket, presence. Now, double bracket, time. Be here now. And so that's what this lab is for. And if you are checking in, then I do require you to come to every lab and mean that way. You know? I circulate the check-in sheet because I say to the class, I don't want you to check in. I don't care your body is here. I want you to be here. I don't want present, I want presence. So the lab is a lab of practicing presence. So that's what it means performance. It's like before a big game, you show up for the lab. I'm just saying that now. I do pay very close. If you're going to sign up for the lab, you need to show up. And not show up in the way just I got my body in here, but my mind is thinking about the paper I've got to write, do tomorrow. No, be here now. And to practice that, 13 weeks, twice a week, 26 times, you might start to just catch on a little bit. That's my hope by the end of the semester. The rest of your life, he says, when you graduate and you get pulled into the whole thing, and then when you're 40 years old, you're having a midlife crisis, and you think, maybe I should really think about this issue, because Arjuna is a midlife crisis, and Krishna is coaching him. And so the first text is to open the Bhagavad Gita. Leave it up to me to try and bring in the whole, what Plato is doing and what Heidegger is doing in the existentialism, and what Jacques Derrida is, how does that connect here? And what did Buddha do? How does Buddha, because he was practicing all the yogas, and yet he went into the Buddha enlightenment. What was it? What's up with Buddha? So that's a global context. So because although here they're all different, there's East and West and ancient and medieval, and that's gone. Those artificial boundaries are gone. This space is an equal opportunity. We're all here. Here's Moses right next to the Buddha, and Buddha is chatting with Jesus, and Jesus is hanging out with Shankara. And Shankara is partying with Krishna, and Magdalene is having a cigar with who knows. You know, they're all in the same space now. Why? Because Unum sphere. It's a continuum. That means it's artificial to just package them and say, oh, East and West, and that silo, and this silo. And wisdom can't be siloed. What is first cannot be put in a silo. It blows away. If you say, I've got God over here, no, you already blew it. It can't be a silo. It's got to be an open sphere, holosphere, infinite space, an open commons. This is the commons of humanity. The whole human family is hanging out. Why? Because you can't be without being. And we're coded. Everyone is coded. So if you start to look at the infinite and begin to say, can I get any sense of myself here? You can check this out. Well, the infinite is infinitely one. It's infinite diversity. That means diversity is connected and funded by the unity. And I am one of those points. Well, I'm linked into presence. Wow, it's God in every person. Brahman is here. You got that right away. There's a relationship between you and the infinite. That's what Descartes discovered when he stepped out and said, I am. What I am, I don't know, but I am. So he went into, he says, I'm thinking, not thinking, predicatively thinking. I'm meditating, I'm a pulse of awareness. No more CV. That's what he said, but I can die. I'm not sustaining myself. He realizes he's being held. The self is not source, but it's being sourced. It's not mean you're identical with it. So if Jesus, for example, is speaking the source language, I am the source of one. That means I'm in union. But that's old hat. That's everyone. We knew that. Because you can't be without source. So you're being sourced, and therefore the infinite other, I and other, is infinitely here. It's holding me. I'm in a relationship. There's a relation. Once I have relation, not relation, single bracket relation, but double bracket relationality. You can already see that right here. If you locate yourself here, you're going to have a lot of axioms lurking that need to be pulled out. And that's the Brahma Sutra. Big book. Brahma being, sutra, formulae, the geometry of being, the first philosophy. So after we warm up with the Gita, which is already going to be excruciating, from now until the midterm, we're going to go chapter by chapter. You've got to get the translation that I've ordered because this is a text intensive. We go around the circle and read it out and then try to decode it. And we have to do it because we don't know how is Krishna speaking to Arjuna. And why did Arjuna break down in a midlife crisis, in a fratricidal war? And he's saying, my ethics is gone, Krishna, help me, I'm lost. What do I do? Who am I? He was ready for inquiry. And Krishna has to be patient as a coach to help him understand the language he never knew, which is the Vedic science, source, the yoga technology. So he's teaching Arjuna the technology of a deeper way to mentate, which is meditation. So meditation is not like egotation or predication. People just confuse them. And yoga, no, the yoga of yoga. Yoga is double bracket. What we were doing in the culture is like, yeah, I'm doing yoga. I got my yoga pants. I know the postures. I'm breathing. I'm working. It's a workout. No, it's a work in. It's a work beyond. In other words, yoga is flipping the code. From my code first, my narrative, my whole culture, my life first. No, it's derivative. Get first. Start to first. First philosophy means first. You got to own it. And that's what this lab is. It's a code. It's code education. This class, learning the codes and the literacy in a global context. To see that this is not just ancient Hindu wisdom. No, it's contemporary, because this space is contemporary, and now it's right now. It's more relevant now than ever. As your coach, allegedly, I'm gifting myself that status in terms of coaching. the literacy of the source language and script, which has been orchestrating humanity. If you want to have an evolutionary understanding for millennia, this has been calling us because we're kids. We're source kids. We're logos kids. We say we're children of God. We're children of source. All of these metaphors. We're carrying this. Quakers, again, is God in every person. But it's not God in every person. Every person is in the God space. And we're interwoven. Let's start a college. What time is it? Okay, I better wind up. Okay. Very patient. I hope you have a sense then of why this is the most exciting lab. Every student should be here. I hate to turn people away. Why? Because I mean, if I care, then every soul, is vital. Every student at Haverford should be tuning into. Let me get this at least once before I dump it and deny it and reject it and throw it out. I dare you. Let's see. So the journey is. So how do you grade, Gangadine? It's not just feedback information. Ordinary single bracket grading is degrading. It's objectifying the student other and saying, show me what you got, feed it back to me, give me a paper. I don't do that. That's not education. Double bracket education, source education means you've got to learn the code. It's co-ed, but now it's code-ed. Right? The highest form of intelligence is the language of being a human. And if a code is a derivative code, but this version of me is not my primary self, and that's echoed across the planet, that's global context. I'll be sure it's not just a Vedic thing. All the Christ language is that point. Christ is the source. Can you find Christ here? When some people say the Magdalene, Nag Hammadi, Gnostic texts say Jesus wasn't here to teach a religion, a belief system, which is here, but to teach us is Christ within us. We're Christ kids. Find it. Why? Can you find it here? Yeah, it's obvious. Krishna is an avatar. What is an avatar? A manifestation of a source, allegedly. You saw the movie Avatar, right? Can you say that you're an avatar? Buddha is saying we're all Buddhas. I'm not making this up. Buddha says we're all Buddhas. I mean, when you realize who you are, you're not an object. This version of yourself is not you. It's a no self. Buddha is saying no self. Well, that's echoing what Krishna is teaching Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. So let me wrap this up because I've got to really call out your names without objectifying you. So if you're in the, you have to attend. Start with the Gita next time, chapter 1 and 2. Bring the right text because we're going to go around the circle and read it and decode it together to learn the language of Krishna because we're Arjuna here, right? And as we get warmed up towards the midterms, I'll ask you to write a meditative thought of making sense, perhaps, what is yogic action? Now that we understand Krishna's coaching, did you get it? What is yogic action? Write me a 3 to 5 page reflection and meditation, not a predication, by the midterm. So when you come back, I don't give you a blue book, says here's some questions, answer it. No, that's old stuff. It has to be performance. So I've designed over decades a midterm conference, deep dialogue meeting in my office upstairs. My office is there upstairs, right? Where we sign up, the group will sign up in groups of 5, midterm. You're writing a paper, you're coming back from spring break. It's due when you come back, just so you can anticipate your all-nighter. And then you sign up for midterm dialogues. Groups of 5 up in party time, a yoga party. We have goodies and all kinds of things to really just work it out together. Zen it, improv, together upstairs. Kids love it. Students say the midterm conference was my favorite part of the whole Haverford experience. Because you're not talking about it in the big room. You're working out to see, am I getting the literacy? And speaking of evaluation, if I'm not going to give you single bracket grades but a double bracket coaching, how do you do that? Well, I give you feedback at the midterms. After the midterm conference, and your notes that you write to review at that point, and your short paper, I give you some coaching, encouraging, because everyone should shine. I'm not just giving you 3.7. that's too crude anyway. 3.3, 3.7, 3. No, I'm much more refined. 3.1, 3.2, 3.4, 5. Yeah, I look to what am I looking for? Are you getting the literacy? Are you demonstrating that you're dancing? In each and everyone uniquely in getting the movement from the language that we know, the predicative language, to beginning to get the literacy of the Vedic space and language, and incorporating it and testing it out and so forth, right? And it begins to show. I get beautiful papers by the midterm conferences are high. Students are floating out of the room after we're finished an hour and a half, right? Because we're going into the meditative space. And when you come into class, I don't want present, I want presence. Hour and a half, no blinking, focused. Right? I know you'll never do it. 2 minutes, you're gone. 1 minute, we're really gone. Okay, right? And then when you come back, we open up the Brahma Sutras, the pure geometry of Brahman. Sutras by Shankaracharya, one of the geniuses of history. We're not going to read the whole book. It looks formidable. But we're going to open up. This is one of the great points in the Vedic tradition of Shankaracharya. And even then, that's so great. And then at the end, and Aurobindo, the end of the class. Who's Aurobindo? One of the geniuses of India, right? Who was in a way duking it out with Gandhi. Gandhi was saying, they're colleagues. And Aurobindo went to prison also. And Gandhi was saying, well, until we get the British out of here, we won't be free. Aurobindo was saying, until we get the British out of here, we're not going to be free. It's not the outer, but the inner liberation. And we're going to end with that. He's going to say, after Shankara, he's saying Brahman is the ocean and these are the waves and all of that kind of stuff here. And Brahman is non-dual, but everyday culture is dualistic and fragmented. And so that comes out. Aurobindo says, Brahman shifts and flows. Wow. It's like saying God is happening. God is flowing, not eternal static. It's going to be an amazing place to end up with Aurobindo in the last month of our journey. I have a supplementary text, Advaita Vedanta. Advaita means non-dual Vedanta. So this is Vedanta, right? Vedic science. Okay, enough. Are you all right? And your final project, I invite you individually or in your midterm groups, often students who are athletes in the zone and they get hired together. Can we do a podcast together in the end to show how we've incorporated our journey into the literacy of yogic technology, right? Or some students say, I want to write a poem. I want to do some music. I want to dance. I want to show it. Shiva is the Lord of dance. I'm going to dance. I'm going to doogie. I'm kidding. You follow? Right, so it's performance at the end. It's a great time to unleash your creativity to the highest level in the multiple ways that you do, the art forms that you have, right? If you're analytical and you want to do something that way, great. If you're artistic, you show your intelligence that way, fantastic. Okay. So next class, this version of the Gita, chapter 1 and 2. Let's do this. Well done. Thank you.